Welcome to Ayurveda and Spirituality with your host, Alakananda Ma, a renowned Ayurvedic expert and a graduate of a top London medical school. She is the principal of Alundi Ayurveda Gurukula, a unique apprenticeship-style school in Boulder, Colorado. She is a spiritual mother, teacher, flower essence maker, and storyteller. Join us as we uncover the timeless principles of Ayurveda, discover practical tips for enhancing vitality, and explore the deeper dimensions of spirituality that intertwine with the ancient science of life.
So welcome everyone. Welcome to Satsang. Satsang is a meeting of hearts, a gathering of friends to inquire into the truth. So today we are wrapping up with Prashna Upanishad. So we'll just kind of review where we got with it so far, and then we'll do the last two questions of Prashna Upanishad. So right now I'm reading a book called The Maniac, which features a lot of the great founders of modern physics and mathematics, which is pretty interesting to be reading. All of the great names feature in this book. Einstein, Max Planck, Heisenberg, Schrödinger, all of these great names of physics and mathematics. Now, similarly, so those were the great ones of the era of basically creating the atomic era. I mean, they let the genie out of the bottle in an attempt to save the world, actually, because they were afraid the Nazis would get the genie out of the bottle first. What we have in Prashna Upanishad is a similar array of luminaries like Bhardwaj, Gargya, um, uh, really, really great sages, people that we honor in our Ayurvedic texts. And yet, what have they done? They have come to someone who's toweringly above them. They've come with fuel in hand humbly to learn from Sage Pippalyada and get their questions answered. And so they stay with Pippalyada for a whole year in asceticism, brahmacharya, and faith before they even get a chance to answer their questions. They do a lot of chopping wood and carrying water, as I'm sure Einstein would do too. He was actually a really nice person. So then the questions we've looked at so far, from where are all these creatures born, was question one. And that leads us to Prajapati, great-grandfather, progenitor. Question two, Bhargava Vaidarbhi asking, how many gods maintain the creature and who's the top? And that leads us to the elements and the senses, but above all, to the finest of them all, prana. That brings us to question three, what Kaushala Ashvalanya asks. Well, where does prana come from? How does it get into the body? And what about the divisions of prana? And that's where we had a wow moment when we saw the fivefold pranas being in the Upanishads before they were in the texts of Ayurveda and before they were in the Yoga Sutras. I did get a further email from Swami Paramananda saying, well, maybe we should look at prana in the Vedas. So we should try to do that and see if there are 5 pranas in the Vedas. But in the interim, since I had a medical emergency, I haven't written back to Swami nor looked for the 5 pranas in the Vedas as yet. So the 5 pranas are the officials put in charge of the different villages. Then we had question 4 about sleep and dreams. What goes on when we're asleep? What goes on when we're dreaming? And that was a Soryanin Gargya, another of the great sages like a Heisenberg of his era, asking that question. So now we have 2 more questions to do. And question 5 brings us back to Om, 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 Om. All you need is Om. All you need is Om. All you need is Om. Om. Om is all you need. That's where we're coming to now, because Satyakama is asking if a human being, this is pretty cool, doesn't even say if a man, if a human being meditates on Om until he departs this life, what world does he win by it? What world does he who among mortals meditates on Om until the moment of death win? That is the question. What do we get from Om? And Pippalyada says, Satyakama, what the Om is Brahman, the higher Brahman and the lower Brahman. So the one who knows by its support will reach to either the higher or the lower Brahman. Shankara says the higher Brahman, the true, the undecaying, is known as Purusha, the Supreme Person. And the lower Brahman is known as Prana, the firstborn. This is the syllable Om. The higher Brahman cannot be indicated by words. It has no distinguishing attributes. It's beyond the reach of the senses and the mind. The mere mind cannot comprehend it. That's the absolutely baffling thing about the world that the Upanishads introduce us to, the knowing of that which cannot be known. That this also comes in the Christian teachings about the Trinity, because you have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit's like hanging out with us all the time, more intimate to us than our most inner self. And the Son, he came and we saw the stuff he did and we heard the things he said, but the Father is always beyond. That's the point. It's kind of a very similar idea. The one that is beyond the reach of the senses. If you think you saw Brahman, you're wrong. If you think you grasped Brahman, you're wrong. If you think you understood Brahman, you're wrong, because Brahman is beyond the reach of the senses and the mind cannot comprehend it. But Shankaracharya, the founder of Advaita Vedanta, says, but to those worshippers who contemplate the syllable Om and regard it as a substitute for Brahman, this Para Brahman, the Supreme Brahman will reveal itself. We have this on the authority of the scriptures. All you need is Om. That sound reaches us beyond the senses, beyond the mind, to the unknowable. Therefore, it is by courtesy that Brahman, the higher and the lower, is said to be Om. By the meditation on Om, we will attain the self. It is Om that is the nearest thing to Brahman. I remember when my brother was around 17 and he was discovering all this stuff. And he said, well, I like Om. He said, it's like a kiss. This thing. Om. He then gave me his Bhagavad Gita and his Upanishads when he got fed up with studying it, which I had for years and years and years. And then he said, his big sister, me, the guy's like a foot taller than me, his big sister gave him the Tao Te Ching, and he's never looked back since, and said, this will prove useful to you. And he still has that. But that was his direction. What the Om is Brahman, the higher and the lower. If one meditates on it as having one element, given knowledge by that, one quickly returns to earth. The Rig Veda brings us to the human world. There, endowed with asceticism, celibacy, and faith, one experiences greatness. So if we meditate on Om, just the beginning of Om, the Ah, that's considered equivalent to meditating on the entire Rig Veda. Either meditating on the Ah or meditating on Om, but the preeminence is given to Ah, then we will quickly return to earth, come back to the human world, and become absolutely preeminent and have a great life. Because one who has fallen from yoga, the yoga brushed, the fallen yogi, will never attain a bad goal. This is said straight up the same thing in Bhagavad Gita. Once we start on this path of yoga, not meaning this a path of asanas particularly, but meaning a path of practice and meditation, our life is going to be better come what may. It's not going to go wrong. If we meditate with two elements, or with the second matra, the O, you come to mind. And this fits with the Yajur Veda out of the four Vedas. And it brings us to the middle air, the world of the moon, and we experience power in the world of the moon and come back again. There's a lot of concepts that we have to understand these verses. Om Bhu Swaha Agnaye Idam Namama Om Bhuvah Swaha Vayuve Idam Namama Om Swah Swaha Suryaya Idam Namama. That's the Vayahrutis, the great utterances. We also say in Gayatri Mantra, Om Bhur Swaha. Same thing. There's these great utterances. There's the earth world, the earth plane of existence, that is here being equated with the Rig Veda, just for the sake of tidiness, really. Then there's, and the of the Om. Then there's the bhuva, the space, the air, that's been being equated with the Yajur Veda out of the four Vedas and the syllable O of the Om. And so that leads us to the mind. And we'll go to the world of the moon, hang out, have a great time, and come back. But once we meditate on the three elements of Om, A, U, M, then we will come to Om Swaswaha Suryaya Idam Namama. We come to the heavenly world and we reach Surya, we reach light, we reach the sun. And as the snake sheds its skin, we are freed from evil. We are led by the sum of verses to the world of Brahman. He sees the Purusha dwelling in the citadel higher than the highest mass of life. And Shankara says, he who meditates on the Supreme Purusha, the one who dwells within the sun, with the knowledge of all the three syllables of Om, A, U, Ma, by such meditation becomes united with the sun. But it's the Om that takes us there. The Om is the instrument that takes us to the Supreme Purusha. Even if he dies while meditating, he won't come back. If we go to the world of the moon, we come back. But if we go to the world of the sun, we'll be forever united with the sun. As the snake puts off its skin and becomes new again, the man freed from the impurity of sin, analogous to the skin of the snake, is conducted up to the world of Brahman, the Hiranyagarbha, the golden embryo, Satya, the truth. He, Hiranyagarbha, the golden embryo, is the self of all the jivas, all the beings traveling in samsara. He is the internal self of all living beings in subtle form. In him, the subtle Atman, are all the jivas, all the beings strung together. So he is Jivagana, he is dense with lives. The knowledge of the syllable Om, A-U-Ma, sees the Purusha, called Paramatman, beyond the golden embryo, sees him by meditation, lodged in all bodies. And there are two verses about this. The three elements are death-bearing when used, attached to one another, yet disjoined. When they are rightly used in activities, outside, inside, and between, the knower does not tremble. By the Rig verses to this world, by the Yajas verses to the middle air, by the Saman verses to that which the poets make known. With Om as support, the knower goes to the one that is peaceful, ageless, immortal, fearless, and supreme. So through doing all the three syllables of Om, it takes us beyond all the worlds. And Shankara says the syllables of Om, they are actually subject to death. They're not beyond the pale of death, but when we use them to meditate on Atman, then they will take us beyond. They will lead us to be a knower of Atman. Sense making sense so far? We're coming to the final question. So this is Bharadwaj's question. It's like Einstein coming with his question to Pippalyada. Then Sukashan Bharadwaj asked him, Blessed One, Hiranyaba, a king's son of Koshala came to me and asked a question. Bharadwaj, do you know the person with 16 parts? So that he's come to the topmost sage to say somebody, a prince, came and asked me a question that I couldn't answer. I told the prince, I don't know him. If I'd known him, of course I would have told you. And I'm not going to speak falsehood. And he fell silent, mounted his chariot, and left. The prince came with a question, and the great, great Bharadwaj had to say, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know the answer. What is that Purusha who has the 16 parts? Where is he? Prabhupada said, it's okay, good man. The person in whom the 16 parts arise is here, inside this body. Remember, this is the great discovery of the axial age, freeing us from our desperate attempt to pacify the incomprehensible forces outside us that can wash away our crops, burn our forests, wither our crops, leading us away from this attempt by rituals to pacify the forces outside us that cannot be pacified. We turn and we look inside and we find everything that the whole macrocosm, within the microcosm, within the hologram, inside us. Good man, the person in whom the 16 parts arise is here in this body. He thought, what needs to have departed for me to have departed? What needs to have stayed for me to stay? So the 16 parts, the parts, actually a word we're familiar with, kala, the Purusha of 16 colors, which we're about to name. So don't worry about that. We're about to name all of these 16 parts. He thought, this person of 16 parts, what needs to have departed for me to depart? What needs to have stayed for me to stay? This is the huge question that I had as a medical student and a junior doctor. What departs to make us dead? What stays to make us still alive? On what agent leaving my body will I be going out? What staying in my body shall I stay? Says Shankara. So Prakriti is actually the one that creates everything, says Shankara. Prakriti converts itself or herself into Mahat and other forms for the benefit of Purusha. It doesn't make sense, says Shankara, to say that Purusha created the universe himself because there is Prakriti, the state of equilibrium of the three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas. She gets to create the world. Atman is just one and doesn't have anything to make a universe of. And why would Atman do anything to trouble itself? So it's Prakriti that has established all this, says Shankara. So he, or perhaps we should say, according to Shankara, Prakriti creates prana. Well, we've been talking all along about the importance of prana. From prana, Shraddha, from prana, faith. And then Akash, space, Vayu. They actually say light or tejas, not Agni. Up or water, Prithvi, earth, the five senses, mind, and food. This is laying out the 16 parts. From food came strength and tapas. Heat comes from food, because it's like pretty good physiology. The mantras, work, the world, and from the world, nama. From the world comes name. So then what happens? Just as the flowing rivers heading towards the ocean disappear into the ocean, and their name and form are broken up, and it is just called ocean, the 16 parts of the sea heading toward the person disappear. The name and form are broken up, and it is just called Purusha. This is without parts. This is immortal. This is also one of the analogies that Raghudas used for me, actually in explaining that all religions are one. He said there are many rivers, the Ganga, the Yamuna, the Godavari, the Kaveri. There are many, many rivers, the Brahmaputra, but they all end in one ocean. That's literally what he said to me. So just as these rivers flowing towards the sea, having reached the sea, disappear, they're no longer separate. We don't call them by these separate things, we call it all the sea. So of him that sees Purusha around, the 16 colors, all these different parts, disappear into Purusha. It is called Purusha alone. Shankara says, in this world, the rivers flowing, whose goal is the sea, having reached the sea, have the disappearance of their name and form. When they disappear, their name and form, Ganga, Yamuna, etc., disappear. In the absence of all distinctions, it's called the sea. So the seer, the one, no, now we're not talking about sea, but one whose eyes see, who sees around the Purusha, the Purusha is already described and has become the self of the 16 colors. Prana and all the rest of those 16 that we just described, the elements and all of that, the goal is Purusha. The sea is of the rivers. Having reached Purusha, being absorbed into Purusha, they disappear. Their names, like prana, and their distinct nature are destroyed. What survives and is not destroyed when name and form are destroyed is called Purusha, the Supreme Personality, by the knowers of Brahman. So once our teacher teaches us this, how all these colors, all these 16 parts are absorbed, we ourselves become devoid of all these parts. The colors produced by ignorance, desire, and karma become absorbed by knowledge and become immortal. The colors produced by ignorance, the cause of death, are destroyed. And here is the verse that explains it. Know the person who is to be known, in whom the parts are fixed like spokes in a chariot wheel hub, that death may not trouble you. The other great analogy that Raghudas told me when I first met him. And Shankaracharya says, As the spokes of a wheel are centered in the hub of the wheel and depend and rest on the hub, so the colors, prana, etc., are centered in the Purusha during their creation, support, and destruction. Know that Purusha to be the self of all these colors, of all these 16 parts, worthy to be known because he is either all-pervading or dwelling in the heart. You can see it all of both ways. So, O disciples, death does not harm you. If Purusha is not known, you will be miserable, subject to the grief caused by death. So know the whole, know the whole, know the Purusha. Do not be subject to the grief caused by death. So these great sages, like I said, the Einstein and the Max Planck and the Heisenberg and the Schrödinger, all of their age, have come to this sage of sages, Pippalyada. They're going to get a final word. I'm going to tell you this. Pippalyada says, this is what I know. This is how much I know of the Supreme Brahman. There is nothing beyond this. That's not the best translation. This other translation here says, this much I know, that there is nothing beyond this Supreme Brahman. This is the wrap-up of Prashna Upanishad. This is the wrap-up that the greatest thinkers, the greatest intellectuals, the greatest sages, the greatest beings of their day get from the still greater teacher. This much alone I know, this Supreme Brahman. Nata param stiti. There is nothing beyond this. And they're so grateful. They've been chopping this guy's wood and carrying his water and cooking his food and washing his loincloth for a year to get these teachings. They say, you are our father who helps us cross to the further shore beyond ignorance. Adoration to the supreme rishis. It's often translated sages. It really means the ones who see. Praise to the supreme rishis. Having thus instructed them, Pippalyada said to them, this is Shankara now, thus far I know the supreme Brahman worthy to be known. There is nothing beyond this more excellent or worthy to be known. This he said to remove any doubt in their mind that there was not something not known. This actually happened to us with Tenka Rinpoche. Remember, Tenka Rinpoche adopted us after Raghudas left his body, and we met Tenka Rinpoche in Kathmandu, and we said, I told him I had a dream that I was going to get adopted by someone equal to Raghudas, and he said, yeah, that's me. And with our last visit with him, we said, now that we've studied the Mahamudra with you, and we've been with Raghudas, is there anything we haven't received? And he said, you have received everything. And that's the greatest assurance you can get. Like, you have received everything. You don't need to go shopping in the spiritual marketplace. You just need to practice what you've already got. Calm down. You have received everything. This is what Tenka Rinpoche said to us, is exactly what Pippalyada is saying to these great sages, to make them feel calm, to make them feel relieved, says Shankara, that you have received everything. There's not anything else that you have to know. You've come here and you've got what you came for. Then what are the disciples instructed by the preceptor? Their purpose accomplished. And finding no return for knowledge received, what do? They worship him by throwing handfuls of flowers at his feet and prostrating before him. And they say, you are our Father. You are the Creator because you have given us the knowledge of Brahman. Body, eternal, undecaying, deathless, and fearless as it were, you alone have helped us cross by means of the boat of knowledge to the other shore. The further shore is the state of supreme emancipation, crossing over the ocean of samsara. We've crossed the ocean of ignorance to reach the further shore. Even you are even greater than our original Father who created our physical body. What need be said of him who confers a freedom from fear? So Shankara says, yes, adoration to the great sages who transmit the knowledge of Brahman. Adoration to the great sages. Keep on saying it. Gods, may we hear good fortune with our ears. You worthy of sacrifice, may we see good fortune with our eyes. Having praised you with bodies strong of limb, may we attain lifelong what is ordained by the gods. May Indra of great swiftness, may Pushan, the all-knowing, may Tarksha Aristamani, may Brihaspati ordain well-being for us. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shantihi. That is Prashna Upanishad.
Thank you for tuning in to Ayurveda and Spirituality with Alakananda Ma. We hope today's exploration has ignited a spark of curiosity and insight within you. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and share it with a friend. For more enlightening discussions and practical wisdom on Ayurveda and spirituality, subscribe and join our Facebook group, Alundi Ayurveda. To allow us to continue sharing valuable content, consider donating to Alundi Ashram. The links will be in the show notes. Until next time, may you walk the path of Ayurveda with grace and embrace the light of spiritual wisdom in your journey.
Trayambakam yajamahe Sugandham